So we are ready now. Good evening, everyone. We want to welcome you back to our afternoon service. Special welcome to those who are online as well. And this evening we have a very special presentation planned for everyone. And we would like you to enjoy yourself as you listen. And there will be time for questions, I am sure. And it promises to be very educational, but still exciting. We will start our program with a word of prayer, and I'm going to ask Mark to pray for us to begin. Let's all stand for prayer.
Heavenly Father, we just want to come before you and give you thanks for the ability to gather here this evening to hear and learn about things that may very well be affecting us that we may be unbeknownst to. So please, Lord God, open the hearts and the ears of every individual sitting here and open the mind of the speaker that he may be able to speak to us from angles that may penetrate our hearts such that the information sticks with us. Into your hands we commit all that is going to be done this evening, and may it bring your name's honor and glory. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen.
You may be seated. So we are going to sing one song this afternoon before we get right into our presentation, because we want to give as much time as possible for the presentation and any questions as well. It's supposed to be especially educational for our Pathfinders and young people. We are going to do number 11 in the Advent You Sing, Can the World See Jesus in You? Do we live so close to the Lord today, passing to and from life's busy way, that the world in us can likeness see to the man of Calvary? Can the world see Jesus in me? Can the world see Jesus in you? Does your love At this time, I would like to introduce to you our presenter this evening. He is well known in Barbados, especially during the COVID times. I think everybody would know him for that. He was very much pioneer in that area because it was something that the world was unfamiliar with. In Barbados, we were unfamiliar with. We didn't know what to do, and his expertise has, I'm sure it taught him. It was a learning curve for him, as it was for all of us. But his humble spirit allowed him to be able to speak to the country and to get people to understand what was happening so that they could have done what was needed to get us through that period of time. And so with no further fanfare, I invite Dr. Most Honorable Corey Forde to present to us this evening.
Thank you. And I feel so at home with this group. That's a good thing for me. Before I even begin to say anything, I was just sitting there and I just have to say this. I mean, it's a very powerful song. I love the song you sang last. The song that really stood out to my mind just now before I get in. I'm not here to preach. I'm here to educate you. But if the Lord lays something upon my heart, I'm going to say it. I've always been like that. Even when challenged or even when people think, maybe you're a doctor, you're to give medical information. If the Lord tells me to ask me to tell the country to pray, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And then that's important because I stand here today not because of my own strength, but the strength that God has given me. And not only that, I stand here today with an understanding that I could not be in this position or in position to even speak to you or do anything or administer any knowledge without the help of Almighty God. And that song that I was saying today, Jesus, you're the center of my joy. All that's good and perfect comes from you. And I think that that's important. And most of my discussion today is a very sensitive discussion for church. I just want to congratulate you guys for even thinking, thank you, for even considering having a discussion of that nature. But I think more importantly, there we go. I think more importantly, these are things that should be discussed on a general basis. And I'm not going to spend all the time behind the podium because that's not me. But my aim today, and even for those online, is to try to educate you a little bit. And I started the last time I was here, and I really had a good time. Last time I was here, lots of questions, kept me going, kept me on my feet, and that's the way how I like it. But Luke 21, 9 to 11, imagine I'm starting like that, and that's the way you should always start. Luke 21, 9 to 11 says, but when you shall hear of wars and commotions, and be not terrified, for these things must first come to pass. But the end is not by and by. Then he said unto them, nations shall rise against nations, and kingdoms against kingdoms, and great earthquakes shall in diverse places, and famines, and pestilence, and fearful sights, and great signs shall they be from heaven. And I think that that's important for you as believers to understand. Don't be fearful because these things will happen and will come. And from my perspective, when we talk about infectious diseases, it's often scary to people. I think when I say infectious diseases, the one that you remember is COVID-19. But there are many other things out there, and there's some things that I believe that we certainly have forgotten. If I go through the amount of infectious diseases that are flaring up at this point, you probably will all run through the door and hide and head for the hills. But I just want to go back a little bit. We spoke before about one of those most fearful infectious diseases, just take me 2 slides down. If you can, it's fine with me. And that's anybody in here. I mean, there are some younger folks in here. I'm going to be talking a lot to you today because I think that that's important. And one of the things that is really, there you go, stop. Right there. Right, it's monkeypox. And I spoke about this before, but many of you weren't here, so you don't know what that is. Sounds like a very scary thing. They don't call it monkeypox anymore. They call it mpox, just politics of infectious diseases. So they call it mpox. So you might think that this is far away from us. But I think if COVID has not taught us anything, then we're never going to learn. Because of the advent of flying and traveling, issues such as infectious diseases is now like one global community. And I spoke about monkeypox last time, so we know how it can present. It sounds like any normal flus kind of presents like that, but you can get these little pox on your skin. It can be very scary. And have we have cases of monkeypox in Barbados? Anybody knows? How many cases we had? 1, 2, 2 cases of monkeypox that I know about in Barbados. So that's important. And how do you get it? Yes, I'm teaching you, but you're gonna teach me too. Teach me what you know, and then I'm gonna filter it back down. So how do you actually get it? Anybody knows? So everybody believes it's a common thing in the real world. If you see something that has pox, you think you have to touch it to get it. That's partly true. But why is the world concerned about this? Why was there a major call to make this a disease of global significance? Because there will be a massive outbreak of this illness in Africa. And you think that's far away from Barbados. Only if you go to the UK, but if you fly straight, it's much closer, right? Right? And that's the important point. But I think because from what has happened before with Ebola, we know a little bit more that diseases can travel. And this one is tricky because it has what we call an incubation period that can last up to about 21 days. That's a long time. And we know that once you get it, once you can have the disease, and at least 3 to 4 days before, you can spread it before you actually get into trouble. And that's what makes this one a little bit more tricky. And if I teach you something about viruses are so funny. Viruses are so funny and how they spread. The most you would think, if I ask you let me ask that question, it's actually quite funny. What's the most dangerous virus you think there is out there? Anybody can call. Don't be frightened. I want you to talk to me because it gets me going. So what do you think is the most dangerous virus out there? Yes, young lady?
The flu?
What's that?
Flu.
Flu? Okay. All right, somebody says the flu. Any other answers? What? AIDS? All right, AIDS, we can talk about that later. Any other ones? The common cold? Any other ones? Okay, so don't be afraid. I don't care if you get it wrong. You want to talk to me?
Cancer.
Cancer? All right, cancer, no virus. But there's some viruses that cause cancer, so we're going there. But I think the important point I want to make to you here is, this is going to sound a bit weird. A virus is more dangerous, right? So everybody gets worried about Ebola and Marburg and all of those, right? Me too, because they sound more scary, right? And you see people bleeding out the eyes and all that drama. But a virus is actually more dangerous, in my opinion, as an infectious disease doctor, when it can stay in your body. It makes sense, right? It can stay in your body. You don't know it's there, and you spread it all the time. And by the time you catch and figure that you have a problem, it's already gone. That makes a virus, those are the smarter viruses. The viruses that kill you quickly, if you get it, you're dead in 3 days, it can't really spread that fast, right? You're locked in. But if you have the virus, it's in your body, and you can be still spreading it, and by the time you figure out that you're sick, 10 more people have it, that's actually more dangerous. That makes sense? Yeah. So those are the type of viruses we're talking about. So this one is a bit tricky in that perspective. Now, I'm glad there are lots of kids here, because the majority of people who had this one this clad of what we call monkeypox, which is 1B, which is kind of newish, was actually kids. And that's where the mortality was in children, believe it or not, right? Was totally different to all the other ones. That's why I told you already, don't be frightened. Bible already said these things are going to happen. We just have to equip ourselves with the knowledge and understanding. That's why I'm very proud of you and having these sort of events. So when we talk about that particular one in affecting kids, it really affected kids in that part of Africa because things are different. I don't expect the same thing to happen if we had cases in Barbados to happen. It's because those kids were lived in more enclosed environments, in camps. They were laying down on the same sheets. That's kind of how it spread. So a lot of that's what you see, but it can also be spread by droplets. And lots of people don't know that as well. It's the same thing I always tell people with chicken pox. You live in a house with someone who has chicken pox, you lock them in a room and say, don't touch them, and still you get it. And you can't figure out how because it's in the air. That's how it enters your respiratory tract. So knowledge, my grandfather always told me before he died, knowledge is power. I just want to, next slide only, not really going to focus too much on slides, but it can look like that. That's how it look in the kids. Looks gruesome, doesn't it? Ew. Ew, right? Ew, right. But this is the reality of what children in that part of the world have been dealing with. If you saw someone like this, you would run fast from them, right? Yes? If I told you you're going to help them, you were going to help them? Probably not. You'd be scared. But it's good to be scared, but it's also good to be knowledgeable. Because we could assume we have to touch them to get it and be scarring them, and then it's in the air and you're in trouble. Right? So knowledge is power. So I taught you just now about how it spread. This is real. It's something that's still going on. It's still a disease currently of global significance. I really expect that to change in a hurry. But the good news is there is a vaccine that covers it. It's not called a Mpox vaccine. It's called, anybody knows? Smallpox vaccine. Anybody here ever have smallpox vaccine? Yes, so there are people who are going to be protected in country. Because back in the days, when there was smallpox, people were actually vaccinated. So there's a segment of the population who is going to be protected. But who's not going to be protected? These. Us. I should say us because they ain't distracted. Right? So there will be a segment of population which will be protected if we had a problem. I do not expect this to be a major problem in Barbados. We've handled the cases, the two cases pretty quickly and frequently. There were imported cases. And that's important as well to understand there were people who got on a plane, went somewhere, and they came back to Barbados with the illness. If it was cases within Barbados, that's a totally different ballgame. And that sets, yes, exactly. So it's a totally different ballgame when we caught this. So I wanted to remind you, I spoke about it last time, and I spoke to you just now about the incubation period, meaning that time between having the infection and actually expressing it. I spoke to you just now about the fact that this one is quite tricky because you can kind of spread it before you even have symptoms. There's one other, and I need to talk about that because the children in the room, it's my last slide, but I'm going to bring my last slide right here because it fits it nicely. One of the other diseases that we actually have to watch very carefully in country, very, very carefully, is measles. Anybody here ever had measles? Don't feel shame. Not me. Right? Some people had measles. Right? But most of our population should be vaccinated against measles. You heard the word I just used? That's a bad word in medicine. Should be. Should be means some are not. And because of this whole event of, everybody's fighting for vaccines. No, the vaccine can kill you. But I always tell people this. The reason why Barbados is the way how it is now, and we're not seeing any of those diseases, is because we have been vaccinated over time. So we have been measles-free for all of these years. And they're using the same vaccine, ain't it different from back then? So if you've been protected for all that time, now people are refusing to have their kids vaccinated for all different types of reasons. If you have a segment of your population which are unvaccinated, that is going to could potentially be a disaster. You know why? Because there are people in our population, Lord, speak to me today. There are people in our population that will not be able to protect themselves if we have a massive measles outbreak. Do you know who those people would be? The people who are helpless, the people who can't help themselves, the people who can't do any better for themselves. Who are those people going to be? They're going to be in hospital, and they're going to be upstairs in a particular unit in an incubator. All of those neonates and babies who are unvaccinated are all going to be in trouble. This is why we advise people who work in healthcare to absolutely ensure that you are vaccinated appropriately, because they can't protect themselves. They're dependent on us to help them. After all, they said our population is aging. We can't afford to kill a whole set of babies. Not true? Now I'm going to go to the sticky topic. I will stay the night. I prayed and I prayed and I prayed again. I said, Lord, help me to say the right thing, do the right thing, and get it across to people, because it's a very tricky topic to talk about in the church. But I'm going to tell you something. The truth is, reality check is, I want you to go to this slide. I want you to see the reality check. Down. I had no plans to use this slide, just only one or two or three. It's not responded. A slide that says reality check. So it says reality check. The church, there you go, right there, no further. The church is not immune to seeing sexually transmitted diseases. Let me say it again before you beat me up, right? The church is not immune from seeing sexually transmitted illnesses. These are things that we don't want to talk about. I think if you go back to the Bible, Jesus had to deal with some of these issues, you know. Eh? They're not immune to any of these illnesses. The church is a part of a larger community. Not true? Right. And then people who are living in a community come to church, and they may have diseases like HIV. Not true? Yeah, they're still people. They still need God in their life. Not true? Because you're HIV positive doesn't mean that you don't need God. Right? You need it. That's right. You need it more than ever. Right? And people living with HIV who are, people who are living in HIV, I didn't express it too right on the slide there. What I'm trying to say is that there are people who come to church who may have people in their household who are HIV positive. And they might not necessarily be coming to church with you. That's just the reality of the world that we live in. And so these are things that I want you to consider. And I want to give you a few statistics. First, I'm going to give you a bit of global statistics, and then I'm going to plunder you with Barbados statistics and kind of blow you out to the water in this room. I'm not here to remember my first reading from the Bible. Remember that as we go through and you get frightened, go back to that one. These things are to come. whether you, they will come, but we as a church have to educate ourselves and therefore be able to protect ourselves. And we know that if God is in front, we have nothing to fear. Not true? Good. So HIV remains one of the most global or major problems. If I told you that there were, I think this is 2022, 2023 statistics, that 42.3 million people died or were affected by HIV. That's a staggering statistic. If I do the mathematics, the amount of people live in Barbados, that's frightening. And they estimated this is 2023 statistics, that 39.9 million people are living with HIV. That was at the end of 2023. And 65% of them, which part of the world do you think they were? In China? We think they were? In Africa. That's a staggering statistic. Not true? But wait for Barbados. So, in 2023, 630,000 people died from HIV-related causes in that 1 year alone. That's a lot of people, right? An estimated 1.3 million acquired HIV. So when I say Africa, we're in Africa, Botswana, Lesotho, Zimbabwe, and I lived in South Africa. And at the time I lived in South Africa and studied, I went all over the world learning about strange diseases. Just very adventurous, right? So when I was in Africa, I remember them telling me at the time that this was a little bit funny. They telling me at the time that, Corey, you know what the race of HIV is right here in Durban? And I was like, I don't know. I just know that HIV clinic was big. But then again, there were millions of people that lived there. And it was 1 in 8. That's serious business. 1 in 8. And that's a little bit further north. When you go to areas like Botswana, it was much greater. We have to ask ourselves why. You know, I'm going to say this, and Lord has stopped me in midair sometimes when I'm going down a line, right? And I'm going to say this. This is why if you go back to Scripture from the beginning, God ordained how things were supposed to go. When man goes away from what God has ordained, expect anything to happen. The only sad thing about that is when anything happens, the people of God are still in the environment of the things that are happening. And so we need to give ourselves that knowledge. That's, again, I want to congratulate you for having this sort of event. I can put up the statistics from Barbados. You can find them online. And when only give you 2022, I ain't give you the others. I might frighten you further. Right? Oh, don't go no further than that slide. It was scared them. Right, so if you look at the statistics in Barbados, this is 2022 statistics, and you can find it anywhere online. 4,648 people. How many people live in this country? About 280,000. And back then it's probably a little bit more the same. If you do the mathematics for that, that is a significant number. Right? That's in 2022. The epidemic started in Barbados, and we collected our first case in 1984. What do you see there that's significant? Can't see so good, right? I can read it for you. By far, there's a statistic that I'm not putting up there because I don't want to get into trouble, right? But if you pull the data out of this, you see the males ratio there, 63.4% males and 36.6% females. That's significant. Not true? That is a significant finding. But I can pull something out of that data. Also epidemiology, right? I didn't give you too much trouble this evening with numbers. I can pull further data out of that and tell you that. That's why when I was here last time, I asked specifically to consider having the younger people here. Because if we pull the data out of that, the group between 15 and 49 accounts for the largest amount of cases on each group. Why is that a bother? Did we just say that our population is getting older? That is a staggering thing. And there's more data on that, but I don't want to frighten you this evening. Right? I don't want to frighten you, I want to educate you. If I frighten you too much, you might hear nothing else. Right? And I think the important thing as I discuss this to understand is that group is a very, I'm going to say it, that's the more sexually active group in the country, right? So then that makes it even a huger challenge. So we have to address these issues. These are things that we have to keep talking about in our churches. And people come from home to church. You might come in for the first time. You don't know who people are. And you don't know what they bring with them. I keep saying, as I start off, in my initial slides, remember I told you this, that the church is not a segmented area for the community. We are part of the community. So wherever you find in the community, you're going to find in churches like COVID. Because I have people at Harson's Point with COVID don't mean that there's no COVID nowhere else. We just find them and we dealt with them. Right? So, pardon? Of course you can stop me in between. I'm not typical. I'm very atypical in how I do things. So you can ask questions.
Dr. Forde,
Yes, please.
does male lifestyle have anything to do with that?
Yes, I hinted at that.
I wanted you to frighten us, you see.
Right? So male lifestyle. But I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in the presentation, not in detail that you might think I will go, but I'm going to talk about that because that's very important to understand. Yes, sir.
Dr. Forde, good evening. I was just looking at the deaths, and I noticed that there's a significant amount of males that have died in relation to the women.
There's,
Are
there's,
these? Is there any way for us to know?
why?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
because men are hard ears.
Oh, they didn't take the drug.
The complaints is often a problem. And I'm going to talk more about that in relation to COVID. When I get to COVID and what I think impact it had on this, you're going to be shocked, right? But that's a very good question and a very good observation. So yes, the numbers for men are big if you do your mathematics. Maybe it's not dramatically lopsided, but the point there is that compliance is important. For almost a lot of diseases, sometimes men are less compliant than females. Females are like to go if the toe hurting them, they go to the doctor. If the toe hurting the man, you're like, man, he's a big man. That can get better in 2 days. You only go when the toe rotten off. And then when they get cut off, you can't figure out where you get cut off. Man, the doctor could have saved my toe. No, you could have saved your toe. Right? If you presented earlier. Questions? Go ahead.
I would like to know if your diet affects the sickness.
Yes, so diet is important. We'll talk about that a little bit later. That's interesting. It wouldn't affect HIV is caused by a particular set of events, and I'll talk about that a bit later. Yes, ma'am. I can deal with that. I can deal with that. And that's my next slide. You on the ball. You reading my slides for me before time. So she said, I have HIV and I have AIDS. So people get confused by that. Not true? It's like, wait, but that's the same thing? And it is, technically, but it's not. Right? So HIV, so let me give you an example. You get HIV, and you can have HIV infection, but AIDS is referred to when the number of cells in your body fall below 200, it's called AIDS. So those, what we call CD4 cells, once they fall below 200, it's called AIDS. Once you have AIDS, you always have AIDS. Even though you might go backwards with the medication, you're still classified the same way. All right, so if things are really bad, then you present like that. There's some people, and this is the importance. I'm interested, I'm thankful for that question because this is the importance of having a robust testing system within a country, which I think we do. And I cannot believe that I forgot to do something. Probably it's still in my car, right? I think it's in there. I want to show you something because the technology in terms of identifying HIV is a little bit different than, you have to take blood and wait for the doctor to call you for 2 weeks and sweat, bullets, and more bullets, right? No longer has to be. Yes, please? Oh man, I get into that later. I can tackle that one later because there's even more that I think that we have to worry about post-COVID in terms of dealing with HIV. Because lots of crazy things happened during COVID. People were locked up. So that's my biggest worry if it was honest. I'll tell you why in a minute. That's a secret in this room when I say what my thoughts are on that. But that's an excellent question. And yes, COVID, I believe, has impacted HIV. And I believe you're not, because how HIV is, and I'm going on to my next slide already. How HIV is, when you get HIV, is different. As I say, HIV is one of the smartest viruses there is. It does two things. You get HIV, you acquire HIV, it gets inside your body, and it hides in the cells that you need to help fight infections. That's really smart, right? So you can't kill it unless you kill yourself. Right? So it hides in your own DNA. So it's very, very difficult, right? When you're managing HIV because it hides there. And I think that that's a very, very important point. But I think one of the things, and I think as a discussion, one of the things that I know we're talking about NCDs, we're talking about COVID, we're talking about these things, but this is one that I pray to God that we do not lose track of because I know what the statistics look like, but I also know what they can look like based on the statistics I presented for Africa. So once HIV is in there, And that little soup is in your body, and it can spread from cell to cell, via the lymph nodes. It can move and stay in there. But we have treatments for it. We'll talk about that later. And we have other preventative mechanisms that might be helpful to people. I hope it didn't scare you too much with the statistics. That was not the aim. So we know how it spreads. So this is also a myth buster session because we have to understand how it spread. Blood, breast milk, sexual organs, secretions. You need to know that, right? And in the rare cases, and Barbados has been very good at preventing this one from mother to child. But it's not spread generally, I can say generally, by hugging, shaking their hands, sharing objects, food or water. Because then you know somebody else, you have to understand that too, because people with HIV might be present in your church. And if somebody knows them and say, I want to touch she, I want to hug she, I sit on the chair, she's sitting down, and that's not how God would want you to do. And that is also an important point. Because we would say, oh, ain't a big deal until somebody say, going to sit on a chair. She just sit in that chair, sit on that chair. But no. That may not be you, but the person next to you. You might say, I ain't doing that. Right? Knowledge is power. That's not how you get it. Understood? Good. So I said before, once the HIV virus gets in, affects your immune system. We said how it's transmitted, and this is another important point. That's why I always say we always have to continue within our population of screening, not only for HIV, but other sexually transmitted diseases. I'll tell you a joke. And I'll tell you what I believe might happen. I think during COVID, a lot of promiscuity happened. Whether you want to believe it or not, it did. Right? And we will soon see the repercussions of that. But people will present. I can tell you, I've seen several people in my own. I'm not speaking on behalf of ministry. I'm speaking on behalf of Corey Forde, the infectious disease doctor. Let's pick that out there from the beginning and make it very clear. Right? So, one of the things which I worry about is what happened during COVID. There's a lot of promiscuity. People were locked in the house, and when you let them out, you know what happened. Huh? Yeah. I'm not talking about y'all in this church. No, not talking about y'all. I'm talking about all day. I hope I'm not talking about y'all in the church. Right? And they gone through the gate, and everybody went crazy. And you see the repercussions of that. How do I know that there's a problem? Because there's some sexually transmitted diseases, which I'll talk about in a minute, which, when transmitted, present themselves early. Where the Beijers will call, let children close the ears, clap. And those things, they present early, so we can see that. So once I start seeing that, and start seeing it with haste, and enough fellas coming to the office needing a joke. Doctor, you need a joke, or you need the tablets. It means we might have a bigger problem. And the reason why I say that is because when you have one sexually transmitted disease, things like herpes, which is not uncommon in Barbados, don't get confused. It's not uncommon, right? We talk about chlamydia and gonorrhea. Once you start seeing those, the risk for transmission of HIV in that population side, that means the person's practically been using unprotected. Yeah? Good. So then the risk in that population is higher. So I get a little bit anxious. So remember I said about HIV, it comes in, it can be latent almost 10 years. And you'll be good and feeling good until. This is the importance of doing regular screening within our communities. And I made a point just now, and I'm sorry, it's in my car. I would actually show you. I actually do the test on myself right here, because I'm frightened, right? And I ain't do it before I left. I want to make sure. Right? I'm sure I have it in my car. I'm almost sure, in a little brown bag in the back. The old times, you just have to take blood to get HIV. The world has moved on. And that still happens, or can happen. But there are no other tests that can be used. Anybody knows what I'm talking about? That you can get back in 20, 40 minutes? In
A
your
rapid
house?
test?
A rapid test, yes. And all rapid tests sometimes are not just blood. You can put it around here, this right outside the saliva, and put it here. I have it in my car. I'm so sorry I didn't. Yeah. Right? And you put it around here, you put it at the top there, you put it in the thing and sit down and wait 20 minutes and you get a result. If you got 2 lines, you have a problem. if you got 1 line, that's hope that's in control. It's exactly like a pregnancy test. So now we have the technology to make that. And I believe that in time that we need to make those readily available to us because we know you have to go to the doctor to get an HIV test. If you the doctor, I need an HIV test. Doctor, you like, I wonder what you want HIV test for. You want to tell me? So people are worried about that. But I think if people now have greater access to testing, we actually probably can do better. Especially because we know what happens in the younger population. And hopefully people come forward.
Question?
Yes.
Hey, good afternoon, Dr. Forde.
Everybody's gone. 1 second. Everybody gone quick and start talking about it. They're talking about monkeypox. Everybody want monkeypox. Everybody want to talk. No, you talk about HIV. Everybody's like, well, that's that boy. People can start wondering about me. No, ask the questions. Knowledge is power. All right. I got to stay for the speakers. Knowledge is power.
Yeah, good afternoon, Dr. Forde.
You want to test for my car? Or you want to get? I can test you. You. Everybody do that way. Get in trouble.
Yeah, Dr. Forde. What's the accuracy of the whole HIV test?
Not pregnancy test.
Sorry, the HIV test. What's the accuracy?
It's pretty accurate. It's pretty accurate. The accuracy could be. It depends on the type of test. So the oral test, the oral one can be as high as 95% test. So you do that if it's positive. There's another test that they do, right? And then they will do the confirmatory test. So you don't when you get test positive, they don't just say that test positive. They do other confirmatory tests. But I can tell you from experience, I've never had one that was wrong. It's pretty good, right? I promise before you leave here, I'll show y'all. All right? I will not test any of you all. I will get into trouble for that. If it turns out positive, it can be a problem.
Question.
Yes? Go ahead.
Question, sir.
Go ahead.
You said that the technology is there, and a lot of people will use the technology in terms of Google and so on, but how dangerous is it to self-diagnose? You got a few symptoms, and like a lot of people nowadays can go on Google and say, well, I got these symptoms and want self-diagnose. So yes, the technology helps, but how dangerous is it?
That's an interesting question. It's a very interesting question. I think that if I took any infectious disease, I might find myself in the same hole. I think after this now, you go home. If I tell you symptoms, you go home and say, oh, Lord, I got that. No. There are many things that can cause many different symptoms. It's usually the risk. So you have to look at the risk. What is the risk? Have you been doing things you were not supposed to do? Have you been running around doing things you were not supposed to do? That's like the slide that you read in my slides as well, right? So I want you to go down to what are the risks. See if you find that slide. Because that's the key. If you know you've been doing risky things, then that can happen. Thank you so much. In fact, the most common presentation of a patient who has just gotten HIV disease looks like the common flu. So when you first, I should say that, when you first get infected with HIV, most people will have, and some people are fine, they don't get nothing. But the majority will have a little bit of fever, and it can prolong for a long time, and get these little lymph nodes on here, just come up and they just last long. Not the ones you get for shaving, okay? Don't get frightened, right? So you can get them on here for a long time. You can get intermittent fever. You may get like what you call a bad flu. Everybody said they got the flu. A bad flu that lasts for longer than it normally would, and then it goes away. And then you're in that phase where your body is attacking and trying to deal with it and holding it, so you're good. The pictures that you saw in the old days when people had AIDS, they had AIDS, not HIV infection. They had AIDS, so the weight loss and they're looking bad. You don't see a lot of that anymore. But I will tell you, in the context of what you saw from the figures just now, is that we will see a lot of that if people are not compliant. My biggest worry is that, yes, we have a brilliant HIV program in Barbados. My biggest worry for those people who are not taking their meds, right, and continue the lifestyle. I had to deal with a lot of that in my own infectious disease practice, not private, but otherwise. So that people have become, Exactly. They've become complacent. They've become very careless, promiscuous. They don't care anymore. And I think because we've gotten so good at the treatment, people are no longer afraid. They're like, yeah, man, if I can't really talk about certain things, but if you were ever sit at my office and have a conversation with some of these young people, you all in this room would freak out. I'm telling you, will freak out because they're like, yeah, man, daddy good. He's getting medication for daddy. He gonna be good. That is the sort of level that we are at in country. Exactly. That's why I said the church is a part of. I don't know who came up with this, but these are discussions that need to happen within a church environment. Because if you don't have those discussions, you're not educating your people. Trouble will break out. Believe you me. And that is where a lot of our young people are at. And some of those young people live in your households. I let it sink in, you know. Some of those young people live in your household. You have to have those difficulties as people of God and as parents, you need to have those discussions with your children. Teenagers, little older than teenagers. That's the reality of where we're at. That's their mindset. Those are the groups. That's what they're hearing at school. That's what they're hearing on the school bus. That's what they're hearing at the park. That's what they're hearing. And so it's like, yeah, ain't a big deal no more. Man, you got the tablets, it's meant you're good. And that's where the danger comes. Also, the danger comes, one second. The danger also comes from not being tested as well. It's all back to screening. That's how you stop somebody from moving. Yes, sir.
I understand. I understand that. So when healthcare providers get news, let's say for example they get news of two couples, well, two individuals.
Trying to get me in trouble. You go ahead.
Well, if it's beyond your scope, you could just say no. That won't get me in trouble, so I ain't
No,
answering
no,
it.
no. I ain't gonna answer. I'm not afraid. If God has asked me to do something and I pray about it, whatever come behind, I'm not worried.
All right,
He can
amen.
protect me, so I don't worry.
All right, so let's say
That's how
for
I operate
example,
my life.
there are all right. Let's use two individuals, male and female. They get tested. One comes up HIV positive, the other is not.
Excellent question.
I understand that healthcare providers aren't allowed to disclose that information to both. They have one, the onus is on one to disclose it to the other. So,
Unless you live in Canada, that's different. It's against
so
the law.
this individual could keep it secret, and the healthcare provider cannot do anything because in revealing that person's information, they may lose their license. So, is there any way that are there any discussions that are happening where, because this person can continue to spread the disease, are there any discussions taking place where we can mitigate that but still respect the person's privacy, so to speak?
You ask a very complex question. Some countries in the world have already dealt with this and say if you're positive, you're not going to disclose it to the person. But if you don't, and if you give the person HIV and they're negative, I'm sorry for you going to jail. Or you're going to get reprimanded. Some countries that do that. But I'll tell you this. This is a very, and I'm glad you just give me goose pimples, my brother. This is a very difficult one. And I'll be honest with you, I had to deal with this so many times. And it's hard. It's hard as a physician sitting in the chair. I know wifey's outside. You come to the office because you think something is wrong. You know what wrong you do. And you're positive. It doesn't have to be HIV. It could be another sexually transmitted disease. And I can't tell wifey because I'm breaking your confidence. So you really have to counsel that person and hope that reason and conscience still exists in our community. Right? So it's tricky. And I'm before getting myself in trouble, because I'm not calling names, so it doesn't matter. I've been in a very bad situation like that before, where there was someone, I'm just going to use this someone story. There's someone who was HIV positive. And I'm going to say he. And discussion with him, real life. real life. And for me, as a physician, it broke my heart, but I felt tight, and ministry would have been dealing with that scenario as well. But there's someone who was HIV positive, and the issue in that situation is that the person said, was very clear to me, saying, Doc, you cannot tell anybody, I don't want to know anybody. And we started them with medications, whatever, improved, etc. But the problem was, what he said when he was leaving, he said, I ain't know who give me it, but I think I know it's one of them. All of they can pay. That's a very, very frightening scenario for me as a physician. And I remember, I know I'm going to Bridgetown a lot. I don't even know if I know it last time when I Bridgetown. I'd be so busy. Home, hospital. Home, hospital. Right? Church. And I saw him one time. And he's like, Doc, I keep my promise to you. And that scared me. That's dangerous business.
Yeah, and the reason I ask is because even if you're a health provider and you know a family member that this person may be getting ready to be intimate with, you can't even tell a family member.
But you can. There are different ways. You know, you can add, when people are, you see people in the office, you say, you know, you haven't had an STI screen for a long time. Do you want to have one? So you can approach it from that. That's what you need to do, approach it from that perspective. But I can't go and say, well, your husband got HIV here, you should get tested. And we get locked up. Right? So, but I think there are different ways and different strategies. I have to deal with this a lot. So, and I understand the complexity of it. So, and that's where we're at. And especially, can I just divert within the same sphere? In the young people's sphere, for me, it's more frightening. Because, I mean, because of my area, I have not only, we're talking about HIV, but I'm talking about other STIs as well, like syphilis, etc. And I must feel here I want to cry as I say this, and I honestly do feel that way. And when you talk to a lot of them who may come to see me, and they may come up with one of these STIs, and their thing is like, well, they should know that if you do this, you expect that. That's the thinking, and that's scary. So they're like, well, if I got it, I had unprotected whatever with all of them, they should expect that. They should know that they should use protection. That's the philosophy in a lot of people's heads. And that's scary because some of those people in our mandate from God to bring people in and teach them the word of God, some of those people might end up right in your midst. That's reality, right? Don't get vexed with me. I already prayed to God and said, Lord, make me say the right things always this evening.
Question, Doc.
Yes.
Doc, I understand that doctors live by the ethical code of do no harm. How does that play into a situation like my friend just mentioned, where do no harm means crossing boundaries and betraying that doctor confidentiality with one person as against another. Yeah. In keeping quiet, harm is done. Yeah. So how do you
and you're absolutely right.
deal with that?
You're absolutely right. Like I told you just now, there are means and ways of getting around that. So the ministry I have has a nice program of they can they have a surveillance program. So they will sometimes they just kick in and do their part and advise people to be screened. There are ways of doing that. I think you should be screened because someone you may have been in contact with may have HIV. So that is not telling you it's your partner or whatever. So that's a bit different. The other part that you don't think about, so everybody always think about spread by that mechanism. Not meaning to scare the little children. Don't be scared, okay? Jesus loves the little children. All the little children in the world. Never forget that, right? Talk to them straight. That's what I'm trying to do. But the other thing is piercings. I'll go in there. And tattoos. I will be honest, when I was very young and foolish, I did have tattoos. I'll be honest. I'm straightforward, right? But you can also get spread of HIV from piercings, especially those ones done at home. And not only that, but one of the most contagious viruses there is, which is also a infectious transmitted virus, is called hepatitis B. It's spread by that mechanism. And we have had cases in Barbados which have been linked to these things within the community. So all the fellas on the block, you want 3 piercings, so you got a needle and you stick in one man and you're gonna stick the other man with a needle and you just rub a little alcohol on it, but you don't clean it properly and just from ear to ear. It's a nice way to spread it as well.
Sorry, doctor.
Does that scare you?
Question. What is that virus that you said that you could also get from piercings?
Hepatitis B.
Thank you.
And yes. And that is very infectious. Very, very infectious. I've seen in this very short time, I've seen a good few cases of hepatitis B. Again, it's treatable for most part, but if you don't know, that's part of the problem, right? But there is a vaccine for hepatitis B. I think the kids are now being vaccinated against hepatitis B. It wasn't like that back in my time. I'm that old, but we never had a hepatitis B vaccine. But they are. If you're working in a healthcare institution, you really should, because this one is spread so easy. Not only sexually, by sweat, spit, any secretion, right? So I always tell people when I'm teaching in the hospital, they laugh bad by telling you laughing, but it's serious. One of the easiest ways to get hepatitis B, you see when you don't follow what your lawyer tell you to do, you see crop over, everybody dump on everyone, dump on the ground and roll in boat. And I don't just say dump on the ground and roll in boat, all in the hepatitis B, right? Right? So very easily spread, very, very easily spread.
Yeah. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And I commend the presentation that you're doing. I want to ask a question in relation to vaccinations. Now, I have students embarking upon internship. In order to do the internship at the hospital, they have to get of course, you just mentioned Hep B and C. So what we encourage them to do is to do their titers. If there's immunity, good. If there is not, get the vaccine. Recently, we had to literally quarantine classes because as soon as one of the students got the chickenpox vaccine, the student got chickenpox. Yeah. Could you speak to that? Why that happens?
So I would address that. No, all vaccines are not equal. I always tell people, there are two things I tell people. The majority of percentage of vaccines, it will protect you against infectious diseases, right? But there are two types of different vaccines. There's a live, well, there are more than 2 types, but live, make it simple. A live vaccine and one that's not live. So the live vaccines will give you real symptoms that you really got it. And that might include in a very small percentage of population of those who have chickenpox vaccine. It means you actually can develop chickenpox. Because it's a live vaccine, which is different to some of the others, like hepatitis B, for example, are not live. I just want to address the hepatitis B problem question, because I think that's important to understand. So hepatitis B, not to frighten you, but it's easily spread, like I said before. But what I want you to remember, right, for all of those new people, it is important if they're nursing or medical or dealing with people in those areas, they really should be vaccinated. Now, if you did their titers and their titers are high, it means they had it. Right? They had to have contact with hepatitis B at some time. So that is interesting, right? Because you can clear the majority of people, young people, majority, will clear hepatitis B. I think it's like 80% of people will clear. There's a small percentage that will continue on. It can cause them trouble and destroy the liver and many other things it can cause as well. But the vaccination for that is out there. The kids are getting it, which I think will protect our population. And I really want to encourage people, don't hold your children from irregular vaccines. These are the things that have protected you and got you to the age that you're at. This is why Barbados has, apart from Japan, one of the most aging populations. It's a good thing and a bad thing in a way, right? More pressure on healthcare, but has an aging population because we have to worry about measles and all of these different things. But we need to go back, I think, and now I'm going to get to the part which I started to talk about because...
Question.
Yes, question.
What does hepatitis B do to you?
What is
Hepatitis B due to you.
What did it do to you?
Yes.
Oh man, you're gonna be a little doctor. You come here. That's my little doctor. Ain't not gonna forget you forever. So hepatitis B, like I said, how it spreads. So when it gets into your body, it's another one of these very smart viruses. Trigger point is the liver. It goes there and hangs out and have a party inside the liver, like a birthday party. And when you get a birthday party, you get enough people get birthdays. So you get enough. And the initial part of getting the infection, everything looks like a flu, right? And then some people don't really get much symptoms. But some people, actually in the early phase, it can mash the liver up so bad that you get yellow eyes. It's called jaundice. But everybody does not, that doesn't happen to everybody, and that's part of the problem. Like I said, some people will have a normal flu-like illness, and they don't really think it's a normal flu, and they carry it inside their body, but they can spread it to someone else. Remember what I told you about smart viruses? They hold inside, and then, yes. I love when young people ask questions.
Why can you not get rid of HIV or AIDS?
Why? Because the virus is very smart. It's very, very smart. You know, in your building blocks in your cells, there's this thing called DNA. You ever heard about DNA before? DNA is who make you who you are, right? Your mother and daddy come together and make you DNA. You special, right? You like
The
that?
question.
I'm not finished. You're not finished yet. You're not finished yet, right? So that makes you who you are. The virus embeds itself in your genetic profile. So in order to get rid of it, you can't get that, dude. In you cells that get met all the time. So it's very difficult, right? So the best way is prevention. I go back to what I started off by saying. The good father told us what to do in the beginning. When you go away from what the good father tell you to do, expect problems. And I'm going to say it, I can get in trouble for this one now. I might lose my job tomorrow, but that is all right. The Lord will provide. Right? And I'm going to say this. That is why I believe we are headed in the direction we are in many things. When we move away from God's plan or God's design, thank you, or God's design, expect perilous things or perilous things to happen. And then we try to figure out why is this happening. We know we've been told why it's happened. And I'm going to use the opportunity to say I was very happy to hear the Seventh-day Adventist Church come out and speak out about some of the violent activity that's happening in our country. Just had to lay that in there because I thought it was very good. And I think we're seeing a lot of things we're seeing, whether it be sexual promiscuity, whether it be violence, whether these things is because we've lost our way as a country. And I think we need to pull back, reflect, look. I always say stop, reflect, and get back to God. Our country, if you go back to even our national anthem, what does it say? The Lord has been the people's guide. And if he has been our guide, but we ain't following the guide, what happens? We away from the guide. So we expect it to happen. You can get lost. And you can hope somebody find you. Go ahead.
You mentioned live virus.
Live and
Not live.
Yeah.
All right, can you tell me what
You want the live ones?
is? Yeah,
the
what
live
is
ones?
the
They
live?
can make you frightened. No, Lord have mercy. I purposely didn't do it, but I can do it because you are. So chickenpox is live. Measles, mumps, and rubella are live vaccines. So there's a small risk for getting measles, which is MMR. Very, very late. That's late. And you'll just get a little. So people say when you get the vaccine, man, it's make you sick. Yes, it's supposed to kind of like, because it's showing you a little piece in some cases, so your body's going to react to it, like it, but it's not showing you the whole piece. If it show you the whole piece, you get sick. So you can show you a little piece, so you might get a little fever, a little thing, and this way they tell you to take 2 Panadols, right? And then your body will fight it off, and then you have what we call the antibodies. So if you ever see it again, the real one, you can go after it and mash it up. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, sir. Apologies. Humble apologies.
I'm not sure if I understand you correctly.
Go
I
ahead.
am bothered. I'm
Hold on.
bothered. And I'm a novice.
Okay.
You said earlier that if two persons, I use the church situation, two persons, man or woman, decide that they're in love and they reach a process where they want to be married. They decide to go to get this HIV test. One is positive, the other not. Now, I know that in church, everybody will say you should have conscience and faith and trust and all the different things that they use, you know. But if you decide not to tell the other part, the person didn't tell the other partner, now that means that he could go into a relationship and be
we want
and be affected by it.
no, so we won't allow that. No.
Oh,
That's what I'm telling you. I keep saying all the time
right.
without giving too much details because I don't want to cause any confusion. There are ways of getting around that. So if you're doing it as a part of the counseling, we know that's going to happen. There are ways of getting the other person to get tested as well. And then the ways to then have that discussion. Because sometimes it goes further above me and there are counselors who will come in and deal with those type of scenarios. They didn't want to go into all the fine details, but counselors will come in and deal with those sort of issues. Counsel partners and whatever. I cannot remember, to be honest, apart from one or two cases, and they were not related to couples. They're related to people who just hardiers, right? Who were intent on doing those, on spreading the virus, but that was captured and dealt with, right? That's why there are counselors for HIV, and that's why this program is not usually going on for years if you don't know about it. If you get a call, you will find out. Right? If you don't get a call, you should be all right. All right? So they call into these things. So it's a good question, and it's piercing, right? That's why it's piercing because, I feel you. Because it's piercing because it is hard. Because I keep saying the church is a part of the community. When people come from outside, come and try to marry your daughter or your daughter try, and it's scary. It's scary, and they often advise. And this is not from Ministry of Health. I remember speaking to Corey Forde, not that. So I often advise like couples, right? So if I'm dealing with couples and stuff, and then truthfully, like in my office, like couples come to do that all the time. Like we get married and they just want to make sure that everything good between both of us at the beginning, so there's no confusion in the middle. Because once you marry and everything done, then you can say, it was you, no, I ain't me, it's you. And that's a hard one. And we try to avoid that. Yes? Yes, sir.
My question was kind of two-part.
Go ahead.
And this is in relation to titers. What is the period for which we can say we send a person for titers, or should we send them for the Hep B straight? Should we send them to let them get them?
You mean after vaccination? So the first thing, if you want to give somebody a hepatitis B vaccine, my first thing might be to first make sure they don't have hepatitis B, because then you're wasting vaccine. That's the first order of business. So it's called, I don't want to get too complex, but it's called the S antigen. So you're just looking to see that's the outside. Make it easy. The virus got like 3 smart parts. Outside, which is the surface, the inside, which is the core, and then the E, which is inside. This is the envelope, that's part inside. If you get down to that far, you're in trouble. So what we test for is the outside. If that's positive, that means the person has seen hepatitis B at some point, whether it's years ago or current.
Or they had a vaccine?
No.
Okay.
That's different.
Okay.
So when you're looking at the vaccine now, right? If you're, so the vaccine gives you like a part of the core part. So it's that part that if the antibodies are present for that part, it means that for the core, which is the inside, it means that that person was vaccinated. So automatically know that although it's positive on the background of vaccination. The outside one tells you it's positive. The inside one could be positive in a person who already have the disease, but if you're vaccinated, it can be positive. And you don't want to get the E. If you get the E, that means you definitely break down to get down there. You're in trouble. You're highly infectious potentially if it's positive.
Okay, my last question is a QVH question. We used to relate to an OSHA officer. Is there a new OSHA officer? Do you know?
You're not going there. I'm not going to deal with anything related to my job. I get in trouble.
Oh, okay.
Right? I'll get in trouble. Just forgive me for that. We'll talk after. Right? I still got my smarts about me. I'm here to talk about this. I don't want to talk anything with QEH. I'm not going to discuss because that's not why I'm here. Yes, please.
I still am not so very sure if the brother down there is convinced. Like,
Oh, you ain't convinced me. He holding hands.
A couple is going to get married, so they decided.
Put it closer so I can hear you, because I can't really hear you.
A couple is going to get married, so they decided they're going to have a test, HIV test. And let us say the man is positive, right?
He's always blaming man.
All right.
You know he's always blaming man. He says say that. Go ahead.
I know. Can he not give a written permission to disclose it to his prospective wife?
Of
written
course.
permission.
But that's what I'm saying.
That's what you're saying.
He can. That goes the folks saying. It don't mean that he can say you can disclose to my partner, and that's where I'm going to go on to the next part now. I just want to show you this. So take me down. So that's a good question to take me into. See where it says treatment? Can you go down to treatment? I hope I'm not boring you. Anybody bored? That no sound like a little bit of people. Anybody bored? All right, good. Get distracted.
Hello. I don't have a question. I just want praise. My wife went overseas to Europe, and that card which you all give, which I want so much information. One of the nurses said they really get a doctor name, if so much. But that card that had all the different names, the initial appointment, everything, and the nurse asked, where did you come from? We never had so much information. He said, Barbados. I said, well done, Barbados, because, and this is Europe, which is supposed to be so big and all powerful. So I ain't come to ask nothing about vaccination. I just want to commend Barbados, because yes, Barbados be small and everybody's be criticizing Barbados, but let's be comparing it to all the big countries in the United States. For a small island that is do so much, we need to take credit and praise ourselves instead of criticizing it so
I think
bad.
that deserves a round of applause for our country. I think in terms of our healthcare platform, that we are second to none. I mean, I spoke at a meeting in Malaysia, and it wasn't. I went there. It was an infectious disease meeting, and they asked me to speak. Infectious Disease Congress. I'm going to be speaking in South Africa in a few weeks. Again, they called me back to speak. And one of the things that came out, even in the question, a lot of people commended our COVID response in Barbados. It was unique. And some of the things that we're seeing in the rest of the world, we never saw here. And I think, before you ask your question, young man, I think that we are a very privileged people. And I think despite all the challenges that we might face or think we face in other areas, which names I'm not going to call, I think that we need to acknowledge the efforts of the healthcare system. And we have to acknowledge that we probably wouldn't be sitting here if we didn't have an intact, strong, robust healthcare system. And with that comes the educational programs like this to keep people in pace, on board, and not let them forget. Because as people of God, we forget too fast. When things going too good, we just forget fast. And that way you forget fast, the devil is come straight in and trouble is break out. Yes, young man.
I was going to ask, can a vaccine be incompatible with someone?
Is
It won't work. If it could be incompatible with someone, like it won't work.
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. The answer is yes. A good example of that are rare cases of hepatitis B, where people can get vaccinated and don't uptake the vaccine, and then we have to try to revaccinate. So, brilliant question. Another doctor in the crowd. All right, so treatment. Go ahead.
No, with your leave, Dr. Forde. So, again, thank you for putting this on. I'm not even from this church. We're in the district. So just let you know that Six Rose Church down the road we joined. So some of our members are here as well, right? So we thought this was so important that we had to come.
Very good.
I just wanted to steer us back to slightly what you came here for, just
Thank you.
a very legal basis. So I may or may not know, but based on my very vague recollection in terms of the question that Mark asked and the other gentleman was suggesting, relative to your duty and whatnot, and in terms of infecting persons knowingly with AIDS. No, we don't have any law as far as I'm aware that speaks to it, but I think the laws themselves are so general that you can interpret it
Yes.
in cases of offenses against the person.
That's right.
Right? So from my recollection, I left school a very long time ago. I feel like it can fall under assault. Don't hold me to that, but it is possible. So I'm saying, so it is not that the goodly doctor here is saying that there's absolutely nothing that you can do.
That's why I kept saying there are
Ways
other
and
ways,
means.
but I
There
am
are
not
avenues,
saying.
right? And people are afraid to engage the law courts, but you can. If you know something going on, if you know something, say something. So again, that is just what I want to say on that point.
I thank you. I appreciate that comment, and that kind of falls into. Usually, when the lights go off, it means it's time to go home. We was trying to turn them on. Okay. All right. So I just want to mention this here. So the old-time ways for teaching HIV, the days for teaching HIV has changed so much. You may not even know in the room. But remember the days when there was HIV and people were frightened. They're going to take all these pills, these little big bottles and big pills, but this big to swallow, and it was like terrifying. And I think that's what the culture of people dealing with HIV now has changed. Because people say, a little tablet, everybody will that one a day, and you're good, right? So in the old days, you had to take all these bottle tablets, and many of them had lots of complications. Some will cause what we call problems of peripheral neuropathy and cause your liver to mash up and be sick. So it was a very scary event. But I think as time has gone on, we've now, the new ways of treating HIV is different. So they have most of the times now we have like one pill. I would say the way I want to commend the healthcare professionals in this country and the ministry, right? Again, I'm not speaking on behalf of them, I'm speaking on healthcare for it. I just keep saying that all the time, right? So because we now have access to these, there are countries in this world that do not have access to these medications. And they ain't cheap. They are not cheap, not by a long shot, right? So that we have access to that one pill, that one person can take one pill and can take care of the problem, right? With 3 medicines in it. And now the newer ones that are now going to have 2 meds. And know that in the world now they have the injectables now. We ain't even get there yet. The injectables that you can take it and last you a whole month. So you ain't going to take a test. So we have gone a long way in the management of HIV. I think with that, some of the population has become a little bit callous. Because they're not seeing the things that you would see before. When you hear HIV, before your brain think about TV and see this buddies crawl up in the ball, and you know what I mean? You're not seeing that anymore because the medications and management has been good. So it made people a little bit more promiscuous. They're like not too bothered about it anymore. And now with the advent of this thing called, I don't know if you've ever heard it, it's called PrEP. So pre-exposure prophylaxis is a very difficult one to talk about in church. Right? So pre-exposure prophylaxis. So if you know that somebody, where's the young man? That asked a good question. The guy with the mic. He asked me, I'm sorry he's not here. Oh, there he is. He asked me the question about if you have discordant couples. That can happen, right? You can have a discordant couple. I would just tell you, I've seen it so often, it's like kind of freaky. Like the husband has HIV, they're still having intercourse, and the wife is fine. Right? Very good. That's not even on therapy. So if you find that, what you do is you treat the husband and get him virally suppressed down to less than 40, which means he can't spread it. Right? And we do that sometimes. And the risk for spreading, and I have it on one of my slides, the risk for spreading once you're virally suppressed is next to 0. This is why this whole idea of pre-exposure prophylaxis. What that means a big word, but it means if you're going to have, Lord, just forgive me and guide me as I say this. So if you're going to have a relationship with somebody and you suspect there's a problem, and I'm saying that this is why the world has gone the way it has, because people now just don't care no more because they got all these little pills they pop. Right? For getting themselves in trouble. And then post-exposure prophylaxis, you may not know this as well. If you had a situation, and I need to say this in church, Pastor, forgive me, but I need to say, if you Lord tell me to say it, you can say, beat me up after. Right? If it is, I'm trying to be vague. Post-exposure prophylaxis, what does that mean? If for some reason, it happens a lot in healthcare, if I got stuck with a needle with somebody who's HIV positive, and I go quickly and start medications for that month, the probability of me getting HIV is next to 0. The earlier you start, if you wait too long, you're in trouble. So that can now be reversed into if you had sexual relationship with somebody, let me just put it this way so it'd be the right way, right? If you got married to somebody, next morning get a holler, I forget to tell you that I'm HIV positive, right? Find your way to the doctor. That's the best way. See, Lord put that in my head and the best way to explain it. If I'm saying it the other way, right? And I still say it the right way in the church, right? So if you wake up the next morning to tell you, I'm sorry, I forget to tell you I had HIV, find your way to the doctor because you can start therapy and be protected. The longer you take, if it's more than 72 hours, the probability is we're not going to start you. But if you're in that 72-hour range, you actually can start your therapy only for a month. We do your test at that point, and we do your test directly after the therapy. And most of the time, I've never really seen a case where somebody's converted once they start early. And that's something that a lot of people don't know. But I use it for the husband and wife story, so they don't get in trouble.
You said a lot of young people are saying, okay, the medication is there. Is this medication, or do you tell them that the medication is there? Let me ask a question. Is the medication there to cure or prolong life?
I love the way you phrase the question. Everybody has a choice is the answer to the vaccine one. Moving on briskly. And then to the other one, and they make a very important point. I think it's actually a quite brilliant point, which is the medication does not cure you. And I never said that for the whole time I was standing here. It doesn't cure you. It decreases the amount of virus in your body. If you stop taking it, it will replicate back up. So it just decreases the amount of it in your body. So it's so low, you can't really spread it to someone else. Right? So there's no cure factor. And I think people need to understand that as well. And even, I'll say this though, because I think on the medications, there are other consequences for medications as well that you take as side effects. That can happen in some people. Not everybody, but some people. And then there are those people that, and this will become a problem if there's sexual promiscuity in the presence of HIV. And I always say this. You don't go and meet up with somebody who think, oh, well, this person has HIV and they got it. We can be a couple. It don't work so. There are different strains. You know how they got the cold and they got different strains? They got different strains. And when the strains mix up, God help you. Right? And then the medication that initially we're taking might very well not work. This is where tomorrow Sunday, right? So Monday. So Monday we're going to talk and be on TV in the morning and Morning Barbados talking about antimicrobial resistance because it's Antimicrobial Resistance Week. And the same thing, you have antimicrobials, you have antivirals are part of that antimicrobial network. So you can get resistance, and I didn't talk about that, I kind of shied away from that. You can get resistance in HIV therapy. And then the drugs which are left to treat you with, you're going back to them old drugs from before, which were very, very, very hard on people with their symptoms. So you got to be really careful when you're dealing with this. And that's why it's important when you're on those therapies to continue and not stop. Because when you come back in, that virus might be a totally different flavor, and then you're in trouble. Every time a virus replicates, this is for any virus, anytime a virus replicates, it can spill out some which are not of that initial norm. And that's the danger. What's the danger of COVID-19. Yes.
Thank you, Doc. Just a quick question in connection to this last one. You said the medicines don't cure, they just reduce the viral load. In terms of the PrEP and the PEP, I remember you mentioning may take for a month after exposure or if you suspect anything like that.
That is for the post-exposure prophylaxis. So after you think you're exposed, it's usually up to a month, about 28 days or so you'll take it. For pre-exposure prophylaxis, that's different. For pre-exposure, some of you might have to continue on for life. That's something you don't stop taking. If you have discarded couples, you have to take the pill every day like a vitamin, basically to decrease your risk of transmission. I hope that the husband don't start taking medication. That's why, because you don't know. You're just hoping that he continues to take it to keep his viral load down. Now, if he has a bit of resistance or develops resistance, the viral load can pop back up, but you ain't gonna know. Right? You understand? So that's why pre-exposure prophylaxis is a bit different. You understand? Go ahead, sir.
For the post one, it would be just a month and that would be it? Or?
Yeah. So just a month, you test the person after, and that's it. Yeah, so if somebody, if you're, let me use the one I used before. If you have a husband and a wife, and the husband is positive, right? And the wife is negative, you're going to put the person on pre-exposure prophylaxis. You understand? If, it says, no, listen, there are two different things I'm saying. If no, you got married, and your husband wake up in the morning and say, I forget to tell you that I'm HIV positive. I said, find your way to the doctor, because the treatment then is going to be post-exposure prophylaxis for a month. However, because the other person is positive, you can go into the next part, which is pre-exposure, and continue on. So there may be a case where you can get me in trouble. For the post-exposure, you're never going to see a person again, so you ain't got to worry about that. So you don't have to go on pre-exposure prophylaxis. I hope I'm clear. You get me in trouble. And then winding down a little bit. The other thing I want to talk about, I know my time is long gone. Yeah, definitely long gone. My time is long gone, but I just want to mention this because I think this is important. Can you go to, this is going to frighten everybody in the room. Can you go to the slide that says Committee on Gonorrhea? No, back. That one. All right, you can't read it, so I'm going to read it for you. Huh? So I use in 2021 statistics. And then we can get down to the end, okay? So 2021, we look at chlamydia and gonorrhea. If you look at the amount of samples, the amount of things that are done, this is there for public consumption. So I pull this from nowhere. Anybody can pull this up and look at it online. If you look at the age groups, or the medium age group which is affected is 23 years of age. That is striking. And the majority of cases are between, for both males and females, for both are between the ages of 15 to 29. Anybody here is 15? All right, they done talk. That is striking. But my point is, if this is the case and you're getting this, then you know what else is going to happen with it. And that is why education continues to be important. More than I know y'all want to talk about vaccine, but my head gone from that. This, I believe, is important. There are things that are going on in the country that worry me. Right? There are other things that are going on that you see every day, put in news and whatever, and these things are all connected and linked with people's behaviors and patterns of behavior. And unless we address these issues, and on one of my slides before, I had to go quickly because there were so many questions. One of my slides before spoke about alcohol and drug abuse and the risk for these things and the connection between the two. When people are impaired, right, they do things that they probably wouldn't do if they're impaired. You can teach them all the things you want to teach them. But if they become impaired by alcohol or the use of drugs because of influence at the time, they can get themselves in trouble. And I might not always tell you. And that's one of the things that you need to understand. That's why you need to inculcate into your kids. So part of having a family unit is not just eating together, coming to church together. It's having these discussions and knowing what's going on with your kid. When you see your kid coming home, I'm talking now, passing will put me out, right? When you see your children coming home with new brand clothes and thing, don't say, look nice pun here, before you know where it come from. And who give it to them? I ain't gonna go to search the by part. You will have to do that as a parent, right? But these are things that we are missing in our society. And I honestly believe that some of the things that we are seeing, not diverting, but some of the things that we're seeing and some of the challenges that we're having is because we've gone away from that family unit. Barbados, I remember growing up, we had an extended family. That extended family included my neighbor. If I tell off my grandmother and tell off my grandmother when they get vexed, it was young and stubborn at times, right? And I got outside, her stamping and whatever. My neighbor come outside, Miss Curtin, come say, yo, try and listen to what your grandmother tell you, yeah, boy? And I gonna feel bad, right? I might still go on stamping, but I gonna think, well, if she tell me that and then tell me that, saying ain't computing. And I think we've lost that. We've gone into our neighborhoods and our little silos, and you don't even know who's your neighbor. You only seen up in the morning when I left in the car. I said, oh, she got 3 children. I thought she only had 2. I see an extra one. Huh? You don't even know who living next to you or down the road. We've gone away from that. We've gone away from community development of children. And then we ask ourselves why we say some of these things. Why we say sexually transmitted diseases or these things in this population of people is because we've lost. And go back to what I said in the beginning. God has designed a way for things to happen. When we divert from, how many times I've said that now? When we divert from those ways, expect anything to happen. I'm almost finished, so I get you home. Go ahead,
Good
sir.
evening. I want to know, what is chlamydia and gonorrhea? What does it do to the body?
Okay, oh wow. When I got real doctors in this church, boy. I tell you. All right, so that's a good question. So chlamydia and gonorrhea, those are what we call sexually transmitted diseases. And I should show you some pictures. You'll run out the room. Right? So you can make your testicles and stuff look funny and nasty. Okay? And it can be very, very painful and scary. Right? But there's treatment for it. But because there's treatment for it, don't mean you're supposed to go and try and get it. All right? Because then we say, man, you got treatment for that there, man. Forget it. I can get a hammer and get rid of it. My grandmother would say the old days. That don't work for real. All right? But good question. Don't tell me you're talking about vaccines again. Oh.
I understand that we have one of the highest rates of HIV between 15 and 29 in Caribbean.
I can't tell you the current statistics. There was a scare in the male and female population, that age group. Figures they are kind of pointed to that direction. I wouldn't say in the Caribbean at all. Because when you say Caribbean, if you include Haiti, then no. Huh? They give Barbados a higher percent, but I think they've revised. That was revised by our people. I think the figure that was given wasn't accurate. And that was revised. I can tell you that for sure. I know what the number is, but I'm not going to say. Because it's not documented out there. So I'm only going to talk about things that are there for everybody in the room to see. And then as I finish off, I just want to encourage you, and I talked about this last time. I know you have to go home now but I just encourage you. The other thing, as I finish off in terms of infectious diseases, is the whole idea of travel medicine. I'm not going to be long on it, just going to be straight and to the point. There's a lot of travel that's going on. Know when you're traveling, where you're going. He's like, huh? Know where you're traveling, where you're going. You're like, that making a sense? It does make sense, right? You have to know the diseases, where you're going, and make sure if there's things that you can take, whether it's vaccines or the appropriate tablets, to move with them. A lot of churches, and this is what I'm saying, I'm very happy that this has happened. A lot of churches like to do missions, right? And they go to strange places. You go to Africa, and you go to this place, it sounds good. You're going to Malawi, you're going to Tanzania, and Mozambique, and it sounds good, and you're happy. And you're going for malaria prophylaxis, and malaria will kill you. It ain't going to kill them, it will kill you. Because your body has never seen anything like that before, and it's going to behave like a mad crisis. How many times have I seen people gone, and they come back, and they never take it, and then they end up with malaria? Malaria kills, and quickly. You can look like this, but even you're dead. And for populations who have never seen it like ours, is a worry. We have malaria in the Caribbean, Haiti, Guyana, closer to us, right? But it's not all the Guyana. There's certain parts, if you go into the inner parts, you're going up by the mining areas and whatever, then you'll get into trouble. So you need to know where you're going and the diseases which are there. Before you leave and you're going on your missions, make sure you do that research. If you're unsure, seek a travel doctor advice. This is very, very important. That is my biggest fear for this country, to be honest, in terms of highly infectious diseases. That somebody goes out. I had a case the other day that had me, I can talk about it now, I can talk about it then, that had me light up. Basically, I was anxious. I was anxious for once in my life. I wasn't anxious during COVID. I had prayed. So I didn't anxious. They didn't have anxiety. I never had COVID yet. Not once. Right? I had no anxiety in me. People were like, I was supposed to be frightened. I wasn't because I prayed to God. My sister would always say, my sister would be frightened. I was like, frightened for what? I'm not afraid. If God asked me to do something, he can protect me all the way through. So I ain't had no fear. Right? I was anxious about the situation at points, but not in terms of my own health. But I want to say that, there are scares that come every now and then when people go into far out places and coming back. And when they come back with some strange symptoms. And I had one of those recently. That was very scary for me. Can't talk about what the possibilities were, but that was very scary. But thank God that it wasn't what we initially thought it was. Yeah. That's my last slide.
In the Bible, we hear a lot about Naaman, leprosy.
Yeah.
We hear about leprosy among other individuals.
I cut that out of my conversation for today. It was on my slides.
Why have we not seen leprosy in the world as much as we saw it then in the past? And is there any...
I gotta drink water for this one.
Any
and then it died.
known incident of that occurrence in recent time in country?
Yeah. I'll tell you a joke. Let me surprise you now. I hit you for 6 now. Straight back down the ground for 6. Leprosy has risen its head in the Caribbean. The last time I was here, I told you, if you remember. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, there was a case here. But this you don't know. Right, so there's a move by the World Health Organization to try to eradicate leprosy. So in that process, there's a lot of more surveillance. So when you do surveillance, you pick things up. If you don't do surveillance for saying, how you know you ain't there? Do you understand? So what I would tell you is, I could tell you some countries which are very high. India, and that part of the world, some parts of the Middle East. Near to us, Brazil, I will tell you that for sure. This man here. I studied I did a major course. It was 8 weeks, but it was intense in Manaus, Brazil. And leprosy is like common cold. So we're clinics of thousands of people with leprosy, all different types. So if I see it again, I can pick it up. If you never see it, it's hard, right, to figure it out. So they have a lot of leprosy. There's leprosy in Guyana. There's leprosy in Trinidad. And I think the country which had a little bit of rock with leprosy recently, was close to us, is St. Lucia. And the reason why they had a little challenge, we knew it was a challenge, is if it's imported leprosy, there are lots of travelers from India and stuff that come in. But if you see there are people in your country, with kids with leprosy, that means it's from by you. If that person is a resident of that country. And leprosy, like I said last time, you believe in the old days in the Bible, you talk about the Bible, you think you gotta touch the person to get leprosy. No. It enters here by droplets. If you always think it's bad for your skin, you gotta touch it to get it. That's how you get it. And that's important to understand. So don't think, I think all the cases that have recorded leprosy in recent times in Barbados are people who come from outside insane. But if we ever get kid cases, or people who never left the country, like what happened there in St. Lucia, that different parts up here, there, and here had cluster cases. I think they were like, I don't want to get the number wrong, I think it's 12 or 13 cases, and some were children. You know that you have an in-country problem, and that's when your surveillance increases. Because we're not at that juncture, the guys are continuing monitoring the process thing. And the problem with leprosy is that leprosy can live in you for a long time. Years. 10, 40 years in some places before it manifests itself. Huh? Yes. But it's very hard to get leprosy, by the way. It's not that simple. You got to be in close contact with that person, like, constantly. All right? Thanks for that. That was on my presentation. I cut it off, but that means the Lord told me to speak about it because you asked the question and I just moved past the slide. Right? So Lord sent you a message. So I just want to thank all of y'all for coming out. And listen, I hope that you have learned something, especially the kids, right? There's nothing to be afraid of. Knowledge is power. You always remember that knowledge is power. So I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you about those infectious diseases that you don't want to hear about. And to talk about Oropuchi, I'm not going to talk about it either today. But to understand where we're at, and I'll finish off how I started by saying, for all of these things, from my first slide, for all of these that you see, these are things that we know will happen. We should not be caught surprise by the next pandemic or the next bad virus or the next bad. These are things that are foretold to come. It is for us as Christians and believers to educate ourselves, to make ourselves aware of what's going on around us and to follow suit, but also to use the opportunity to talk to our kids, to educate our kids, and don't let them go astray. You know what the good book say about that, right? And there's always one part of the Bible that I always remember when I talk about something like this. And all these kids should know. I call you kids, you know, we call you children, young adults. Probably prefer that word, right? And that's the fifth. Anybody know what the fifth commandment is? What's the fifth commandment? Who knows the fifth commandment? Don't be shy. We're going home now if you answer. If you answer no, you could go home. That ain't working. I wanted to say it together because that has a message, and that's what I believe we are in the way that we are in this country. When it comes to certain elements and violence and all these different things. Let's say it again. I want everybody to say it together so it stick. Honor that I can't say it no better. That thy days may belong in the land. So when everybody get tackle early, that's it. Have a good night. Sorry for keeping you so long.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Forde. I am sure that we all were very much educated this evening, and I enjoyed it. Let me see those. Everybody, we enjoyed it. Yes, yes. And young people, y'all have a little bit more knowledge now, right? Yeah? Good. So you know what types of choices to make now, right? Wise choices, okay? Wise choices. Not just because you don't want to catch something. I mean, that is the bottom line, yes. But because you want to have healthy bodies so that you can go out there and work for the Lord, okay? Because that is our main purpose. And without further ado, before we say our closing prayer, I would like to ask Dr. Forde to come back up again. Just have a small token of appreciation for, pardon me? I know you don't have to do it, but I feel as though we should do it because it's just a small way for us to express how we feel and our gratitude for having you here today. And I just wanted to thank you very much for coming, and we will definitely be having you again. So at this time, we will stand for our closing prayer. I will ask Elder Jamal, please, to come and pray for us as we prepare to leave this evening.
All right, let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity to hear about these new and re-emerging infectious diseases. Lord, we are so glad that you have sent this one with a message, Dr. Corey Forde, to come to us, and that we, as we always are, a captive audience of people who are interested in our health and healthful living. We ask, oh God, that you will bless him, bless this church, bless all the people who are listening, those who are viewing online. And above all things, I pray that we will take those words which we just recited and that we will keep them in our hearts. May we foster a village and raise a community who is interested in helping our neighbors, helping the children in our household and those with whom we have contact live the best life possible, not just for this life, but for the life to come. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, everyone. And for those of you who know our hike tomorrow morning, 5:30, we meet at St. John's Parish Church. We start at 6. For those who are interested in coming to our monthly hike. Have a great week, everyone, and get home safely.